If they catch me, they won't just kill me. They'll freeze my unborn sons alive inside my body. And you need to understand something before we go any further. I'm not running because I'm weak. I'm running because I'm carrying twin heirs, and the king's legitimate sons have decided that makes me treason. The ice stopped burning hours ago. Now it just spreads. Slow, quiet, patient. It's inside my veins, creeping outward like frost across glass, turning my blood thick with every heartbeat. I keep both hands pressed over my belly not because it helps, but because it makes me feel like I'm doing something. 2 heartbeats push back against the cold. 2. The court healers called it impossible when I told them. Then they called it treason. Now they're statues. Frozen mid-breath. Mid-plea. Mid-warning. Roy and Matthew made sure of that. You've never heard silence the way I hear it now. Not the absence of sound. The presence of it. That heavy, unnatural quiet that comes before ice magic rips the warmth out of living flesh. They don't chase loudly, they don't need to. The temperature drops when they're near. And it's dropping again. My village is gone. Not burned, not raided. Frozen. Every soul crystallized exactly where they stood for giving me shelter. Mothers. Children. Elders. The message carved in frost across the land was simple. Help the Omega carrying twin heirs, and your bloodline ends in ice. They don't just want me dead. They want what's inside me erased. Because twin heirs break succession law. Because twin heirs threaten the throne. Because twin heirs were conceived with an alpha king who doesn't even remember my face. I trip. My bare foot catches something under the snow and I fall hard, belly first into what used to be farmland. The impact steals the air from my lungs. It's a body. Frozen solid beneath me. I don't scream. The tears freeze before they can fall anyway. Get up, I whisper to myself. And I'm whispering it to you too. If I stay down, they'll freeze my sons inside me before my heart stops. They've done it before. I've seen the corpses. Grimes' face flashes through my mind. Not a king that night. Just a grieving man who held me like I mattered. Like I wasn't disposable. Like I made the hollow inside him stop echoing. He was too shattered to mark me. Too broken to remember. And now I'm alone with his bloodline growing inside me and his sons hunting it. You're real, I whisper to my belly as I force myself up. My toes are black from frostbite. I can't feel them anymore. You're his. I won't let them erase you. The storm clears just enough for me to see them. The gates. Ancient iron. Wolves carved into steel. Crown symbols etched deep. The palace. The king who executes petitioners for wasting his time. The king whose sons have already poisoned his court against Omegas like me. The king who doesn't know I exist. Behind me, the air drops another 10 degrees. That's how close they are now. I press my back to the iron gates. The metal burns colder than the snow. My wolf has gone silent. Only the 2 heartbeats remain. Defiant. Furious. Alive. Then they step through the storm. Roy and Matthew. Identical. Perfect. Ice forms in the air around them with every breath. They're smiling. Roy lifts his hand. Frost spreads across his fingers. And then, the air changes. Before we go further, if you're still here, it means you feel this. You feel the cold. You feel the danger. You feel what's at stake. That's not casual watching. That's investment. So let me ask you something, just you. Are you going to disappear when this is over? Or are you staying to see how this bloodline survives? Because the next part only works if you're part of this pack. Subscribe. Not for me. For them. For the twins they tried to erase. And if you're still standing with Edith after what's coming next, you're not just watching. You belong here. Now. Let's see what happens when an Alpha King realizes what his sons have done. The last 3 yards nearly killed her. Edith's knees scraped frozen cobblestones as she crawled toward the iron gates, belly dragging through snow turned pink with blood. The palace loomed above all sharp towers and indifferent stone, crowned with ice that glittered like broken glass. Behind her, the silence was so close she could taste it. metal and death and the particular cold that came before Roy and Matthew finished their work. "Please," she whispered to the two heartbeats still fighting beneath her hands. Steel scraped stone. Guards emerged, faces hard as they drew blades. Standing orders. The king didn't see the petitioners. Especially not Omegas claiming impossible pregnancies. The first guard raised his sword. Something shifted above. Not the brothers killing silence, but something else, a pull that made her damaged wolf stir. Edith lifted her head and saw him. Alpha King Grimes stood on the ramparts like a figure carved from grief itself. Even from this distance, she could see recognition flicker across his face. Not memory. Not yet. But something deeper that made him grip the stone wall hard enough his knuckles went white. "Wait," his voice carried down, rough with confusion. Father." The brothers materialized beside him like matching nightmares, concerned masks that didn't reach their ice-blue eyes. Roy's hand landed on Grimes' shoulder. Matthew leaned in, whispering urgently. By the time they reached the gates, a crowd had gathered. Nobles. Warriors. All hungry for spectacle. Roy stepped forward, voice pitched for the audience. "Father, this is exactly what we've warned you about. A common whore-carrying bastards, comes to extort the crown with lies." The crowd murmured, ready to believe. Matthew moved beside his brother, two pillars of identical righteousness. "Opportunistic Omegas preying on your grief." "No," Edith forced through frozen lips. She tried to rise. Her legs wouldn't hold her. "I'm not." "Silence," Roy said gently, and that was worse than screaming. Grimes stared at her. He faced a war between what his son said and what his body screamed. The mate bond pulled like a fishhook through his heart. "Do I know you?" "Yes." Edith met his eyes. "You told me winter storms reminded you of her. Your queen. How she loved watching snow fall. How you felt hollow without her. She swallowed blood and truth. How I made the hollow feeling stop. Just for one night." The crowd went silent. Intimate words. Private grief. Things a stranger couldn't know. Grimes' face went white. "Father, she's clearly," Matthew started. "Enough." Grimes held up one hand. The mate bond hummed between them, visible as a faint silver thread that made the crowd gasp. But his expression remained neutral, kingship overriding instinct. "Bring her inside." He looked to his sons, choosing duty over recognition. "Trial at dawn. If she lies, she hangs." Guards grabbed Edith's arms, hauling her upright. As they dragged her toward the palace, Matthew stepped close, steadying her with a hand on her shoulder. To the crowd, it looked like concern. "Careful," he murmured, breathing frost against her ear. "You wouldn't want to fall." Where his palm pressed, ice spread beneath her skin. Not frostbite. Something deliberate that crystallized blood and made her twin's heartbeat stutter. As consciousness faded, Edith had one clear thought: she'd survived the wilderness, the silence, the winter itself. But she might not survive her son's father's sons. The palace doors swallowed her whole. Somewhere above, Roy's voice rang out, warm and perfectly calibrated. "Don't worry, father. Justice will prevail." The twins kicked hard twice as if to say, "We're still here. We're still fighting." So Edith stopped passing out and started planning how to survive until morning. Dawn came too fast and not fast enough. They dragged Edith into the throne room still bleeding, torn gown hiding nothing, not her swollen belly, not her blackened frostbite. The court assembled like carrion birds, watching with expressions ranging from disgust to hunger. Grimes sat carved from stone, face carefully blank. But his hands gripped the armrests hard enough wood creaked, that silver mate bond pulled taut between them even as he refused to acknowledge it. Roy stepped forward, voice smooth as winter ice. "Your Majesty, we present evidence of deception." Servants brought documents covered in official seals. Records from 3 territories. "This woman is a known seductress, expelled for attempting to entrap alphas with false pregnancies." "That's not," Edith started. "The witnesses will testify," Matthew interrupted, gesturing to the hall's back. Guards wheeled in what looked like ice sculptures. Bodies. Frozen solid, mouths open in eternal silence. "The healers who confirmed her pregnancy," Roy said. village elders who sheltered her. All died in tragic accidents before they could recant. He paused. How convenient. Rage shuddered through Edith. You murdered them. You froze them to silence the truth. I was conducting border inspections when I discovered Father's distress, Matthew said, face concerned. I found her in his chambers, attempting seduction while he grieved. Lies. But the court murmured agreement. Of course the Omega was guilty. Of course the princes protected their father. Healers examined her with cold efficiency. Twins, the eldest confirmed. Healthy. Strong. She paused. But bloodline cannot be determined until birth. Then we execute her now, Roy said simply. No. Edith lifted her head, met Grimes' eyes. You want proof? I'll give proof. Her voice shook, partly from Roy's subtle ice magic vibrating her bones, partly from intimacy. The night we met, you told me how she died. Your queen. How winter fever took her. How you held her hand through the cold, and her last words were hoping you'd find warmth again. Grimes went white. You told me you felt hollow, Edith continued, words tumbling like blood. That you'd been drowning in grief. That everyone saw the king, but no one saw the man. Her voice dropped to a whisper that carried. That I made you feel human. Just for one night. Silence. Intimate words. Private grief shared with no one. She could have learned these things, Matthew said quickly. Servants talk. But Grimes stared at her, something breaking behind his eyes. Memory. Recognition. That night when he'd been just Grimes, and she'd been the woman who made the hollow feeling stop. I remember, he said quietly. Then louder, fighting it, I remember, something. Roy's expression flickered into cold calculation. Father, you were grief-drunk that entire season. Enough. Grimes stood, mate bond singing so loudly even hostile nobles felt it. But his face remained carved from duty. She stays. Under guard. Until twins are born. He looked at Edith, choosing law over instinct. If they carry my bloodline, you live. If not. She hangs for treason, Roy finished helpfully. Guards moved forward. As they led Edith toward dungeons, toward months of survival while brothers plotted, she felt twins kick hard. 2 fierce movements. 2 sons fighting to be born. The frozen brothers thought imprisonment would silence her. They'd forgotten, dead women tell no tales, but mothers fight until their last breath. And Edith had months of breath left. The cell was stone and silence and slow healing. Edith watched her toes turn from black to purple to something that might be pink again. Palace healers came twice daily, faces neutral. She was recovering. Her body, at least. The twins kicked less now. Not a good sign. He came at night when guards changed shifts. The first time Edith thought she dreamed it, the cell door scraping, his shape backlit by torchlight. Why didn't you tell me you were pregnant? Grimes said, not stepping inside. The mate bond hummed between them, visible as a thread of light neither acknowledged. I didn't know you were the king. Just Grimes. The broken man who told me about winter storms and dead queens and feeling hollow. She met his eyes. The man who made me feel human. Something in his face cracked. He stepped inside. I remember pieces. How you looked at me like I was just a person. Not a crown. His voice dropped. Not a weapon. You were grieving, Edith said. By the time I realized who you were, your sons were hunting me. He knelt beside her. May I? She nodded. His hand hovered over her belly, then touched. The twins kicked immediately, fierce movements that made him jerk back in surprise, then wonder. They're strong, he whispered. They're yours. She covered his hand. Every heartbeat. Every kick. Yours. The mate bond flared. For a moment, she thought he might mark her, his head lowering, teeth aching to claim. But he stopped, duty reasserting like armor. Not until we know for certain, he said, voice shaking. The kingdom. I know. Kings couldn't afford to believe Omegas carrying impossible truths. He left before dawn. Always before dawn. But something was wrong. Edith felt it in how her body fought itself recovering from frostbite while something else crept through her veins. The twins' kicks weakened. Their heartbeats, once fierce and synchronized, began to stutter. Healers came more frequently. "You're healing perfectly," the eldest said, troubled. "But the twins. What about them? Their heartbeats are slowing. We don't understand why." Grimes suspected. She saw it in his night visits, doubt creeping back like frost. "Is this real?" he asked one night. She heard what he didn't say. "Or are you manipulating me like my sons warned?" In the palace kitchens, Roy supervised meal preparation with a smile that never reached his eyes. The frost toxin was odorless, tasteless, designed to target pregnant omegas. Slow-acting. Looked natural when pregnancy failed. Matthew joined him, movements synchronized. "How long?" "Days. Maybe a week." Roy watched a servant ladle soup into a bowl marked for the dungeons. "Then the bastards die," she hangs, and father remembers why he doesn't trust omegas. That night, Edith felt one twin's heartbeat stutter and nearly stop. Her hand flew to her belly, pressing hard as if she could restart it through will. For a terrible moment, nothing. Then weak, irregular, but present, the heartbeat returned. In darkness, she whispered to her sons, "Hold on. Your father is starting to remember. Just hold on." But even she could hear the doubt in her own voice. Because the frost was inside her now. And unlike the winter she'd survived, this cold came from within. They found her at dawn, 3 miles from the palace border. A patrol wolf stumbled across what looked like a sculpture, desperation rendered in ice. Then he saw the terror frozen in her eyes, her mouth mid-scream, the letter clutched in hands stretched toward a palace she'd never reached. They brought her to the throne room on a cart, perfectly preserved, frost glittering on her maid's uniform. The court gathered, drawn by whispers of something impossible. Grimes descended, moved by instinct. When he saw her face, recognition hit. Sarah. The maid who went missing. Last autumn. From her cell, Edith was dragged into the throne room. She took one look and her knees buckled. "Sarah. Oh gods. Sarah. You know her?" Grimes turned. "She helped me escape the first village. After your sons froze everyone else. She ran. Said she had to warn you. That she had proof." The court erupted. Grimes raised a hand for silence. "Bring the healers. Now." They thawed her carefully. Hours of warmth applied in precise increments. As ice melted from her fingers, something appeared. Paper. The king's seal and wax never broke. Grimes took the letter with shaking hands. His face went white, then red, then terrible blank. "Read it aloud," someone called. "Let us hear what the dead woman says." His voice shook. "Your Majesty. By the time you read this, I will likely be dead. Your sons Roy and Matthew have murdered hundreds. 3 villages frozen solid. They hunt an omega carrying twin heirs, your heirs, conceived that night in the tavern. I know because I saw you together. The omega is innocent. The twins are yours. I swear this on my life." He paused, breathing hard. Dated 3 months ago. Chaos erupted. Nobles shouting. Warriors demanding answers. Roy and Matthew stood perfectly calm, ice forming around them. "Forgery," Roy said simply. "Clearly planted by traitors helping this omega deceive you." "Anyone could have planted that letter," Matthew added. "Rebels trying to destabilize the crown." Grimes stared at his sons. "Really seeing them? Did you kill these people?" Roy's smile never wavered. "We protected your legacy from an omega's lies." "That's not what I asked." "Every death was necessary," Matthew said, with no remorse in his voice. "Would you let a horde destroy everything we've built?" Edith watched Grimes' face crack. Watched him realize what his sons had become. "The evidence is circumstantial," an elder noble called. "The letter could be forged. We can't condemn the princes on a dead woman's word. But we can't ignore 3 frozen villages," another countered. Stalemate. Truth laid bare but still undeniable. That night, in her cell, Edith felt both twins' heartbeats slow into a single, synchronized rhythm. Weak. Irregular. Fading. The healer wouldn't meet her eyes. 48 hours. Maybe less. In another wing, Grimes stood alone, Sarah's letter in one hand, his crown's weight in the other. His sons waited outside, patient and cold, certain their father would choose blood over truth. He didn't have 48 hours to choose. None of them did. Grimes summoned them at midnight. No guards. No witnesses. Tell me the truth, he said. All of it. Roy smiled, and it was nothing like his court expression. This smile was winter itself. Every death was necessary. The villages. The healers. The servant. All stood between us and what we've built. Built? Grimes' voice shook. You murdered hundreds. They sheltered Omega trash-carrying bastards, Matthew said. Would you let her destroy everything we are? We're your legacy, Roy stepped closer. Your true heirs. Not some whorewhelps conceived in a tavern while you were drunk. I felt the mate bond. The words came raw. True. That night. I didn't understand then, but I felt it. I loved her. The temperature dropped 10 degrees. Then you were weak, Matthew said, ice forming along his fingertips. And we'll fix that. They moved with terrible synchronization, attacking from both sides. Frost erupted, reaching for their father's throat. Grimes shifted mid-dodge, his wolf larger than his sons anticipated. Claws met ice magic. Father met sons. Roy's ice caught Grimes' shoulder, spreading through muscle. Matthew's magic wrapped his leg, trying to shatter it. But Grimes fought like a man with everything to lose, teeth finding Roy's arm, claws catching Matthew's chest. Guards! Roy screamed. Warriors burst in, saw their king attacking the princes, and froze in confusion. In that hesitation, Matthew's ice caught Grimes full in the chest. Not enough to kill. But enough. Grimes crashed through the window, glass and blood in desperation, landing in the courtyard 3 stories below. He ran, wounded and barely conscious. The king has gone mad. Roy's voice carried across a palace. Compromised by Omega manipulation. Seal the gates. The warriors moved. The palace locked down, iron gates slamming shut. In her cell, Edith felt the power shift. The twins' heartbeats stuttered, barely there. Guards appeared, led by Matthew. His chest still bled, but his smile never wavered. Dawn. You hang at dawn. The bastards die with you. You're going to kill him too, Edith whispered. Aren't you? If he forces us to choose between him and the kingdom? Roy appeared beside his brother. We choose the kingdom. We've always been better rulers. They left her in darkness. Their voices echoed from palace towers, the Omega hangs at dawn. The king's madness ends here. Outside the walls, bleeding into snow, Grimes heard his son's proclamation. He had until sunrise to save his mate and children. But his own blood controlled the palace, the guards, the very ice itself. The mate bond pulled at him anyway. Silver thread in darkness. He started running toward the city, toward allies, toward anything that might help him storm his own palace before dawn. Behind him, metaphorically but felt through the bond, the twins' heartbeats synchronized one final time. Then faded into silence. The first contraction came at midnight. Edith doubled over, hands clutching her belly where the twins' heartbeats had gone so quiet she could barely feel them. Frost toxin crystallized through her veins, turning blood to slush. Dawn would bring birth or execution. Probably both. Footsteps. 2 sets, perfectly synchronized. Roy and Matthew appeared outside her cell, cleaned up from their coup, not a hair out of place. You should have known your place, Roy said, almost gentle. Omegas don't challenge princes and win. Omega trash always overestimates its value, Matthew added, unlocking the cell. Not to free her. To watch her die up close. Edith looked up through pain-hazed eyes and laughed. The sound made both brothers flinch. You're afraid, she said, forcing herself to stand. Not of me. Of what I represent. We're not, Roy started. An Omega who was chosen. Not claimed. Chosen. Edith stepped toward them. They stepped back. By a king who saw me as equal. Who felt the mate bond even drunk with grief. Another step. You've spent your entire lives sharing power. Never enough on your own. Shut up, Matthew said, ice forming along his fingertips. That's why you freeze anyone who threatens your illusion. Edith smiled, sharp as broken glass. You need each other because alone, you're nothing. But my twins? She placed hands on her belly. My twins won't need to murder to matter. They'll just be born. Roy raised his hand, frost gathering. You won't live. The mate bond flared. Silver light exploded from Edith's skin, so bright both brothers stumbled backward. Not her power. Grimes' power, channeled through the bond across miles of winter. The king's alpha strength flowing into his omega mate, his dying children, refusing to let them go. How is she? Matthew gasped. Frost magic sputtered against silver light. Melted. Failed. For the first time, Edith saw fear in the frozen brother's eyes. She'll be dead by morning anyway, Roy said, trying to sound certain. Failing. The poison. Get out, Edith said quietly. They fled. Princes who'd murdered hundreds, who'd frozen villages, who'd attacked their father, ran from a dying Omega in a cell. Edith collapsed as silver light faded. Another contraction hit, stronger. Her body shutting down. Twins' heartbeats are nearly gone. Death winning. But she'd stopped begging. Stopped fearing. If I die standing, she whispered. And my sons will know their mother never bowed. Then, impossible, she felt it. Twins' heartbeats strengthening. Not from healing. From something else. Something fierce and furious, absolutely refusing to die. Her sons were fighting the poison, fighting to be born, fighting to live with rage that made her own defiance look tame. Another contraction. Different. Real. Labor begins in earnest. Edith braced herself against the wall, feeling her children prepare for battle. They were coming. Despite poison. Despite brothers. Despite death itself. All right, my warriors, she whispered, voice steel. Let's show them what Omega blood can do. Dawn came bloody and silver. They dragged Edith to the execution platform, water-broken, body fighting to birth children even as brothers prepared to hang her. The courtyard filled, nobles, warriors, gathered to witness justice or murder. Roy's voice carried. An Omega seductress. False pregnancy. Attempted coup. Edith could barely stand. Test their blood, she gasped through contractions. You'll see. Dead bastards prove nothing, Roy smiled. The executioner approached. Then Edith's water broke fully, blood soaking the platform. The crowd gasped, even hardened nobles disturbed. The palace gates exploded. Grimes crashed through on his wolf, loyalists flooding behind. Wounded, bleeding, furious. Seize the compromised king. Matthew shouted. But Grimes was already shifting, running, crossing the courtyard in seconds. I claim my mate. He reached the platform. Edith fell into his arms. The mate bond ignited like silver fire, visible to every witness. The first twin crowned. Edith screamed, body tearing to bring life into the world. Grimes caught his son tiny, perfect, wailing with fierce rage. The crowd roared. Roy and Matthew moved as one. Ice magic erupted, freezing loyalists solid. Blizzard exploded in the courtyard, temperature dropping 30 degrees. They reached for Grimes and the newborn. The mate bond flared brighter. Silver fire met ice. Steam exploded. Grimes held his firstborn, the baby radiating heat that melted frost. The second twin came fast. Edith caught her second son even as ice shards flew. Both twins cried, fierce demands of their infant heat pushing back against winter itself. True heirs balance ice and fire, Grimes said. You only carry the cold. The brothers unleashed everything. The blizzard turned into a tornado. Ice becoming a weapon, freezing warriors, nobles, trying to freeze their father and the Omega who'd destroyed their world. But Edith stood. Holding her sons, bleeding, she remembered her grandmother's whispers. Ancient Omega magic, forgotten for generations, dismissed as myth. She spoke of the blessing. Her voice carried over the storm. Old words. True words. Power that had nothing to do with rank and everything to do with survival. Silver light exploded outward. The brothers' ice shattered. turned. Their own magic recognized what they'd become, corrupted, imbalanced, wrong, and rejected them. Roy and Matthew froze solid mid-attack. Their own frost crystallized them from inside out, preserving them forever in rage. Ice statues. Eternal warnings. The blizzard died. Silence fell, broken only by 2 infant cries. Not weak. Not frightened. Fierce and demanding and alive. Edith looked down at her sons, then up at their father. Blood ran down her legs. Frostbite blackened her feet. But she stood. "They're alive," she whispered. "We're all alive." The court that had come to witness an execution found themselves witnessing something else. A coronation. A revolution. The moment everything changed. And in her arms, the twins cried their defiance at a world that had tried to kill them before they'd even drawn breath. The healing chambers smelled of herbs and new beginnings. Edith sat propped against silk pillows, watching healers unwrap her feet. 3 toes gone on the left, 2 on the right. Frostbite scars ran up both legs like lightning frozen in flesh. "Does it hurt?" Grimes asked from beside her, where he'd barely left in 3 days. "Not anymore." She traced a scar. "They're mine now. Proof I walked through winter and lived." In twin cradles, Thorn and Ember slept. Healers had tested them, bloodline confirmed, their alpha-omega balance creating power neither parent possessed alone. Rare. Unprecedented. Potentially world-changing. "The court wants answers," Grimes said quietly. Edith met his eyes. "Then give them answers." The mate bond ceremony happened at sunset. Grimes knelt before her, placed his hand over her heart, and spoke words that should have been spoken months ago. "I claim you as a mate. As equal. As Luna." His teeth found her throat, the mark settling like it had always belonged. "I should have done this the first night." "You see now," Edith whispered. "That's what matters." The court assembly convened to decide the frozen brothers' fate. Roy and Matthew stood in the throne room center, preserved mid-attack, ice glittering like accusations. "Execute them," an elder demanded. "They're already dead," another countered. "Keep them frozen forever," a warrior suggested. "As a warning." Grimes stood. Silence fell. He looked at his sons, children he'd failed to see, too consumed by grief to notice them becoming monsters. They killed hundreds. Froze innocents. Staged a coup. His voice broke. "But they're my sons. And I failed them." The court murmured. "They remain frozen until I understand how to break the cycle that created them. Not as punishment. As a remembrance." He gestured. "Move them to the memorial garden. Carve every victim's name beside them. Let future generations see what power without compassion creates." Work began immediately. A garden built around the frozen princes. 3 villages. Hundreds of names. Sarah the servant. All remembered. All honored. A week later, Edith walked the garden slowly, Grimes beside her, their sons sleeping against their chests. Citizens came to mourn, to rage, to begin healing. They stopped before Roy and Matthew, forever frozen. "Do you think they can hear us there?" Edith asked. Grimes didn't answer. Couldn't. But Edith spoke to the ice statues. "You tried to make me disappear. Instead, you made me eternal." She shifted Thorn higher. "Every law I change, every omega I protect, will be because you failed to kill me." Her voice was steel wrapped in silk. "Thank you for teaching me exactly what not to become." The frozen brothers stared back, silent and defeated. Edith turned away, towards sunlight and sleeping children and a kingdom, learning that omega didn't mean powerless. It meant survival. The coronation happened on the first day of spring. Edith stood before the throne in silver fire-colored silk, her frost-scarred feet bare for all to see. No hiding. No shame. Just truth written in tissue and bone. Grimes placed the crown on her head. Not a consort's circlet. Luna's crown is equal to his, forged from the same metal, carrying the same weight. "Not just my mate," he said. "My equal. My Luna. The first omega in 300 years to hold sovereign power." The court erupted. Some celebrated. Some raged. But none could argue. Not with twins sleeping in moonwood cradles, living proof Omega blood could carry alpha power. Omega rights are sovereign rights, Grimes continued. Effective immediately. He gestured to scribes. Omegas may claim heirs without witnesses if mate bonds are proven. Assault on Omegas carries the same punishment as assault on alphas. Pack law revised, Omega strength is different, not lesser. Edith stepped forward. My sons' names are Thorn and Ember. Thorn, for the path I walked to reach them. Ember, for the fire that melted ice. She looked at the court nobles who'd condemned her, warriors who'd stood silent, healers who'd doubted. They will grow up in a kingdom that values survival over power. That recognizes all strength, not just violence. The celebration lasted until midnight. Citizens flooded the grounds, dancing, marveling at the Omega who'd walked through winter and won. But as the moon rose, Edith and Grimes retreated to their chambers. Just them and sleeping sons, the world finally quiet. I'm sorry, Grimes said, holding Ember while Edith cradled Thorn. For not remembering. For not protecting you sooner. Stop. Edith touched his face. You were drowning. I don't blame you. I see you now. I know. She smiled. Just promise me something. Teach our sons that Omega doesn't mean weak. It means survivor. That power without compassion creates monsters. She glanced toward the window, toward the memorial garden. Those scars prove you lived, not that you failed. I promise. He kissed her marked throat. Every day. As dawn broke, Edith stood on the balcony, twins sleeping warm against her chest. Frost-scarred hands gentle on their backs. Crown catching first light, turning it silver and gold. Behind her, the palace she'd nearly died reaching. Below, the memorial garden where frozen brothers stood eternal guard. Ahead, a kingdom learning that Omega didn't mean powerless. It meant survival. She'd walked through winter, through brothers' ice, through court's doubt, through poison and birth and battle. She'd survived what should have killed her 100 times over. And tomorrow, she would teach her sons to melt ice with fire, to balance power with mercy, and to never, ever freeze someone for being different. Because she had survived the brothers' ice, the court's doubt, and winter itself. And tomorrow, she would show the world that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply refuse to freeze.